All right, everybody, welcome to the Pain Factor. Today I have a special guest, a recent acquaintance of mine, good man and a father to a wonderful young lady. His name's JP Marsh. Welcome to the show, JP.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited as well. I'm excited for your story and your testimony as to your personal growth and development and the things that you've been able to accomplish in your relationship with your daughter's mother.
Hmm.
So co-parenting is kind of your thing. It's kind of your shtick, and it sounds like you actually started up a active coaching business. Is that correct?
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it was just the constant of people coming, talking to people or being around my daughter's mother, and all of us doing these group or school or holiday type stuff
Yeah.
together. And you start talking to people, and they're always like, "Oh, I wish I could have that kind of relationship," or "I wish me and my kids' father, kids' mother could be in that, we're at each other's throats, it's high conflict and all these different things." And so then through other people coaching me, having mentors, and then also, growing up, AA was a big part of our home and environment. My dad, got sober when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere around there. And
Okay.
the coaching isn't much different in my mind than the old AA sponsors. You're helping somebody that's 3 to 5 years behind you, that's on the same journey, that's trying to get the outcome that either you're progressing towards, or but with the sponsors in the AA, it was all helping people get out of their own way,
Right.
changing the way they view things, their triggers, finding their triggers, identifying these things. And so the coaching and the helping people and talking about it has all been a fairly seamless kind of evolution, I guess.
Yeah. So you had some exposure to it. It sounds like helping
Right.
people get to where they need to be. So tell me a little bit about your journey on this co-parenting. You said that you've gone from conflict to collaboration. You really want to foster a what do you call that culture, if you will, in your relationship,
Right.
an environment of collaboration, and it's not just for the benefit of your daughter, but it's a benefit of her mother as well, and
Yeah.
her uh, new family, right? So tell me a little bit more
Right.
about that, how that started, and where you've got to.
Well, I mean, at the beginning, it was you had your normal. We were unmarried, so it was your normal breakup kind of situation, or a divorce situation.
Sure.
Hurt feelings, anger, animosity, blaming the other person, wanting to be the victim, and all of those emotions that are wrapped into it. And so when you're wrapped up in your own feelings and you're stuck in your own pity party, and you can't see the other person as the other parent or a partner
Sure.
or somebody who's your teammate, to try to do the best job you can to raise a high functioning adult. As your kids get older, the more they need both parents, they need the guidance and all of these things. And so, I mean, there was a fair amount of that, the arguing and the bickering, and the one person thinking they were going to give up too much control to the other person, and all of these things. And we didn't have to go through really the court system or anything at all, so we didn't have that added layer of pressure. But also, we acted like two adults and communicated to figure it out on our own. There's no set court schedule. So my daughter comes and goes as she pleases for the most part. I mean, we have a relative guideline, but everything's the same in both homes.
Sure.
But for the first couple of years, it was, a lot of the petty, "I'm going to hurt your feelings because you hurt my feelings," or instant defensive. A lot of it I take responsibility for, because I was stuck in my own pity party, and I couldn't see her as my daughter's mother. I only saw her as my ex. And it was easy to be triggered, and it was easy to be defensive, even if it wasn't necessarily directed that way towards me.
Right.
I was so stuck in that habit of being defensive and letting everything trigger me that I wasn't really able to kind of step back and see the big picture or look at the whole conversation. And it was a lot more reacting instead of responding.
Yeah, there
And
was an emotional filter as opposed to being
yeah,
defensive.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then as I worked on myself and started identifying my triggers, letting the relationship go, grieving the relationship, able to make minor mental shifts in the way that I viewed my daughter's mother, because at this point, I don't ever say my ex because that's not who she is in my life. That's not who she is in my reality. She's my daughter's mother, and we're raising our daughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good.
Instead of, you say ex and you get a lot of that anger, shame, animosity, attachment to it because
Right.
you're viewing them as the failed partner from you rather than your child's other parent. And
That's
so,
good. That's good.
and the whole idea that words are powerful.
Yeah.
And then as 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 I quit getting defensive and I stopped engaging in these sort of conversations or triggers or scenarios, whether she was actually looking for a certain reaction of high conflict or not, the less I was giving that reaction, the less that it seemed like it was intentionally trying to get that reaction. So the less I was letting myself be triggered, the less she was looking, trying to poke and trigger me. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
to the point where they just kind of stop or you stop being triggered. It's a fair share of both, I'm sure,
Oh,
depending
absolutely.
on the people.
Yeah, it's what it sounds like is you as you grew into understanding more of kind of your identity in the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
it became less of a personal um, angst, and when it comes to the communication became easier because you understood your role in the
Right.
relationship. And so as you what's that word? As you as you showed up in that role,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say, she was able to see that, okay, I understand better that you have this role, and so now I'm going to treat you in the
Right.
way that you are showing up. So that's pretty awesome, man. That's powerful because it just shows that you were able to grow and change your perspective, and you were actually able to influence
Right.
your mother's, excuse me, your daughter's mother to
Right.
to change her perspective as well. So that's a beautiful thing. And now you guys seem to communicate quite well considering the
Right.
circumstance. And then you were saying something. Oh, yeah, that's right. You were talking to me earlier about um, like outings and
Mm-hmm.
traveling and stuff. And that's
Right.
that's probably a pretty common issue for men. And there's probably a little bit of hurt surrounding that. So tell me a little bit about that story you gave me regarding you know, vacations and stuff. And let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, for the most part, I mean, they do quite a bit more vacationing trips than I do.
Okay.
It's just a different world than I'm from. We didn't do that a lot when growing up. So it's not necessarily, it's something that I've started to do later in life, especially with a 9-year old daughter. And you know, it's not a competition who can take my daughter on the best trip or any of those sorts of things, which
Right.
which is a good start when you get into these realms of, you know, what's best for the kid thinking, or what's a great experience for your children thinking, or I'm jealous because they're doing it and I'm not. Right.
Sure.
And so like an example is, in the springtime, we had to renew my daughter's passport because, no big deal, except I had to actually go down there this time. And other than that, it was just she's had a passport since she was a baby. So her mother was telling me, yeah, we're us and a bunch of us are all going and taking all the kids to the Dominican for Thanksgiving. Like, you don't have anything planned, do you? Just double check that stuff.
Sure.
And I was like, no, that'd be a great experience, for her. And she
Yeah.
was like, well, you're invited. I'm like, I'm good, thank you. But like
Right.
if I'm gonna go on a vacation, I kind of want to have it a vacation. I want to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as it's a great trip, and there's going to be a few different families, and all the kids are around the same age, and so they're going to go and have fun and be in the Dominican Republic for Thanksgiving, and it's no big deal. I could very easily turn that into, now I have to one up for
Right.
Christmas or for spring break or next summer, or you know what I mean? Like, oh well, or in the circles that with the co-parenting, you get a lot of that bitterness, sort of. Well, way to go, Dad. I struggled to be able to take him to the water park for the weekend, and you're taking him to Florida to go to Disney World or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
And you just kind of see it pop up a lot, and
Yeah.
it's sad that people are so in competition with the other parent that they can't see what a great experience it is for the kids to be able to do some of these things, whether they're taking them, the grandparents are taking them, the other parents taking them. I mean, that doesn't matter. Now, if you don't want to be left out, you can actively work to get your situation in a better place where everybody's collaborating and everybody's able to do these things that are going to be super beneficial for the children and the other parents, and cut out some of the animosity.
Gotcha.
At some point, I mean, my daughter's 9 right now. Her stepbrother's, 11, 12. So within the next couple of years, we've talked about all of us doing a trip to go to like a Disney World type vacation.
Yeah.
Obviously, wait for when they're like 14 and 12 or something like that, it would probably make more sense than a 9-year-old that's a little short for her age, won't be able to ride that. But we're able to talk and plan it where we're all going to kind of go at the same time and be there at the same time. Now, we're not necessarily sharing a hotel room, but if we're all in the same place at the same time, same hotel maybe, or, and we'll plan out the details when we plan out the details. But I get to take my daughter to Disney World. Her mom gets to take her to Disney World or Universal Studios or the beach or whatever, whoever wants to do this and that while you're down there.
Yeah.
But also, I get to still have a vacation because the nights that they are going to have the kids, I have the night off,
Right.
and vice versa.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
if you're down there for, a week or 5 days or something like that, you can still have a little bit of me time. You can go with your significant other to a nice restaurant or go to the beach or
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. And so it'll, that kind of a vacation or that kind of a trip is going to end up being like me, my daughter's blended family, and then her stepbrother's mother and her family. You know what I mean? And it just makes it, nobody's left out, But I
Yeah.
mean, these situations are going to come up all through your life because
Absolutely.
when your grandkids are being born, if you can't be in the same room, then one of you's not at the hospital or at the baby
Yeah.
showers or at the weddings, the graduations, the birthday parties for the grandkids. I mean, you have an entire life of these situations where you can either sort it out now and everybody can be fine with each other for forever, or somebody's getting left out.
Yeah, I
You know,
love that perspective. I absolutely love it, because I guarantee you somebody's going to hear that and just be like, "Wow, I'm living that right now."
right?
That whole birthday situation, or
Mm-hmm.
even the grandchild situation, and
Right.
just figuring it out now it's just, even if they're living it right now, if they can work on it, it's not
Right.
too late, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
having that mindset of kind of that silver lining mindset,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm gonna have this is an opportunity to take my daughter and experience something with her, and and your dog wants to get in on it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes.
that's all right. But have an experience, and then at the same time, you're looking for opportunities for yourself, because you know that there's going to be that chance. So you're just not gonna be that grumpy guy,
Right.
that frustrated person who just shows up because because he has to, and you're going to look
Right.
for opportunities to work together. So that's amazing. Um, Tell me a little bit more about, how you got to where you're at personally. So what are some of the
Mhm.
things that you were able to do? Maybe some of the books or some of the people you talked to. Kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Uh, so the first thing, like the first big mental shift, life change was I sort of started doing more audiobooks, less television, and trying to figure out ways to change, you know, my reality and the way that I lived my life and what sort of life I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And so I really had to go back and deal with all of the baggage and trauma from my childhood,
Okay.
right? Which is, heal your own stuff, because if not, you're going to, fall into your habits or your same old, same old.
Yeah.
And so one of the books that I listened to was The Body Keeps the Score, which is a fairly, I mean, it's a long audio book, but it's a pretty thick book. But it goes through with a lot of different ways to deal with trauma and deal with baggage, and the way that your brain processes different traumas and different baggage and childhood and all these different things. And then I started really focusing and practicing and learning, how to, mindfulness training, the meditating and the being present in the moment,
Yeah.
not being too engrossed either in the past to be depressed or too involved thinking about the future and being anxious all the time. Being in the present was a pretty strong focus of mine, because I was sort of, a lot of the things that push me to be certain ways now are a direct result of the things that I told myself throughout my childhood or throughout my teenage years of like, if I have kids, I'm not going to be like that. Or if I have kids, I'm going to be different than that.
Yeah.
And so, growing up in a place where my parents were more distracted or more sort of non-existent, kind of there, but not, it wasn't necessarily a super nurturing, super involved household, And
Yeah.
so I wanted to be different than that, but I had to learn how to be different than that
Yeah.
and to be more involved and be more present and, not be distracted, not be worried all the time, not deal with anxiety. And then, then I had to do a lot of work on myself to sort of stop being self-sabotaging, stop numbing myself, stop
Yeah.
thinking bad thoughts or negative thoughts or talking shit to myself in my head all day or,
Right.
those kinds of things. And not that it was easy or quick or, and it's a lifelong journey that I'm prepared for and that I understand that that's how it is. But, learning my traits, my tendencies, what I want to accomplish, what serves me, what doesn't serve me, my thought processes that are, negative or self-destructive or anything like that, not over, not wearing burnout like a badge of honor and
Sure.
constantly agreeing to things and being too agreeable to where I was never taking time to recover. I'm more of an introverted personality. So I would go far too long committing to all of these things and activities and situations that I really didn't want to be a part of.
Right.
And then it would take way too long for me to like disconnect and go and sort of regroup with myself. And then it would become this revolving door of exhaustion and burnout, and then you throw in the short temper and you throw in the tired and the snappy attitude and a lot of those things. So that's what I continuously do. Some of these books that I listen to, every 6 months or once a year,
Okay.
just to sort of reprogram myself, or reset myself. And then meditating every morning.
Hmm.
I keep a gratitude journal.
Good.
and then not being impulsive. And
Yes.
so if impulse control was a big one for me, not
Right.
reacting to everything, being able to stop, pause, be in the moment, think about what the situation is instead of having a snap reaction, being able to say, I'll touch back with you tomorrow, and we'll, like recognizing that I got triggered or my emotions are high, and I don't want to say something or regret or commit to something that I don't want to do, or you know what I mean. So
Absolutely.
those are a lot
How,
of the
how
a lot
long
of
do
the
you
ways.
how long would you say you've been doing this, working on this? Let me just give me a rough number, like
Oh,
years
about
or
10 years.
okay. Okay. Good. Good. Yeah, man, I'm absolutely on board with everything you're saying because that's exactly, man, your story is so close to mine. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just being that when you're talking about being present, I remember days where I had to intentionally in my head be like, okay, I got to be present right now. I got to pay attention to what's going on in
Right.
front of me because I just let my mind wander. When I was a kid, I had such an issue with daydreaming. I just
Right.
daydream off and go into la la land, and my teachers would be like, "Hey, are you still here?" And so learning to be
Yeah.
present was a tough one. But then you talked about the snap decisions and the quick reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in God, and I believe in the Bible, and the Bible actually talks about that. It says, "Don't be quick to anger, be slow
Right.
to anger, and quick to listen." And so, slow to speak, I believe, is also one. Um, but man, it's just crazy. And when you were talking about the impulse control, what some people don't realize is that impulse control when it comes to like just everyday things like picking up a candy bar because it sounds good. When you get
Right.
those impulse control things under control, that is self-control, right?
Right.
And so when you start practicing self-control, even with the tangible things, it becomes more evident and it comes out more in your emotional state and in your choices. Your internal dialogue becomes a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more clear. And man, I love it. I absolutely love it. That's
And I
amazing.
and there's some of the books that I've listened to had the simplest information, but it's some of that stuff that you just don't. I never would have thought of, or really came to me naturally, I guess, or something. However you want to say it, but like Dr. Jordan Peterson, like his
Right.
books about just these little things that make big impacts. And it's just the small wins, count the small wins all day rather than dwelling on one loss. Or,
Sure.
another book is that psycho-cybernetics, how what you see in the mirror is not necessarily what your brain is showing, in your
Yes.
head and in the mirror, two different things. But making your bed, keeping the room clean, the house organized, doing the
Yeah.
dishes as you use dishes as opposed to stacking them up. You know what I mean? And these little
Right.
things, keeping your car clean, having your clothes hung up, folded, put away, and they don't seem like huge things, but you work 10, 12 hours outside in the blistering heat, freezing cold, you come walking into your house and there's no dishes stacked up. There's no it's not a clutter mess. Everything's, somewhat organized, put away, and this and that. I mean, it's just, you'll have two reactions when you walk in your house. If everything's, and everybody knows it. When you walk into a clean room, the feeling you get is a lot different than one that's clustered and
Yes.
has stuff everywhere and a bunch of stuff that needs to be addressed. And,
Absolutely.
also like going through and kind of figuring out what served me and what didn't. The drinking.
Right.
Drinking is one of those things where it's like, what does it do for me? It's not
Right.
helping me in life.
It's not
If
serving you.
anything, it's
Yeah.
hindering me. It's not. It doesn't make me feel good. It's not like a protein shake or a vitamin drink or anything like that. Like it doesn't serve me. I'm not getting any benefit from it. And if something does happen, it's probably going to be a negative consequence. So it was easy to just sort of let it go by the wayside, you know.
What are some suggestions you have as to where somebody in your shoes can start? Somebody who was in your shoes could start going from that conflict to collaboration in co-parenting.
I would say to find somebody that's impartial, a mentor, a coach.
Okay.
Uh, Typically, they're in my opinion, you're a little bit better off in that regard because there's usually, you know, if it's a 6 month. Like if I coach somebody, it's usually for like 6 months, and then
Okay.
make a decision to go from there. Whereas, you know, therapy seems to be more long term kind of a deal. But typically, if you can find somebody that's either been through it, because of my experience, the way I was raised, I just see that as a better route.
Okay.
But it needs to be somebody that's impartial, because your camp and family are going to tell you that you're right all the time. The other person's a monster, and their camp party is telling them the same thing. So having somebody that can objectively help you identify triggers and sort of get on the right path, but getting to know what you want, and, you know, finding the easiest, quickest way to become the parent that you want to interact with. Leaving your own pity party, you know, letting the emotional baggage and the, you know, grieve the relationship, let it die. Stop seeing the other person as your ex and start seeing them as somebody who you're better off collaborating with, working with, to raise your kids, as opposed to competing with. Um, finding and identifying your triggers was a big one, especially for me. Figuring out why I was so defensive. You know, once I figured out what triggered me, it was easier to avoid those sort of traps
Okay.
or
Yeah.
situations, or the back and forth. You know, when you quit engaging and stop getting triggered, if you're dealing with somebody that's poking and knows how to trigger you and knows what reaction that they're going to get, if they quit getting that reaction, they'll typically stop looking for it because they're not getting what they're looking for.
Right.
Um, and getting rid of the double standards was, it seems to be a big hurdle for a lot of the people I talk to, a lot of the people I work with, early on, or, you know, even years down the road. If you don't want them to stalk you on Facebook, don't stalk them on Facebook. If
Right.
you can do whatever you want to when you don't have the children or kids or child, they can as well. So don't be loading your kids up and driving by their house to see what car might be sitting in their driveway, or who's over at their house when they don't have the kids. If you can have a life, they can have a life. And then just, you know, disconnecting yourself from instant feelings, and you know, letting yourself try to get a grasp of the entire situation before you start reacting and throwing in a bunch of fuel to a fire. You know, it helps. But I mean, for the most part, be the co-parent that you want to co-parent with.
Yeah.
So, you know, lead by example. The more understanding and empathetic and calm demeanored you are, then the more that's going to start being reflected back to you. You know, it's hard to be in a high conflict situation with somebody that just isn't doing it, isn't
Right.
engaging in those behaviors, and isn't,
Right.
you know, reciprocating that emotion or anger or explosiveness, you know, and those sorts of things. So that is, you know, it's going to start with you more so than trying to forcefully get them to act the way that you want them to act, or be the person that you're trying to, you know, because the more that you're trying to influence or mold them into something, the more, you know, they're going to push back, the more they're going to resist,
Right.
in my experience anyway.
Yeah. And so when it comes to any kind of growth in life, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the um, put the oxygen mask on you first, right? So when you're in
Right.
a plane, they say to put the oxygen mask on you first and then help others. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what it sounds like you're doing and what you've been able to accomplish. And That's amazing, man. I really appreciate that. So you did mention to me that you are actively coaching. Is there a way that people can
Mhm.
get a hold of you?
Instagram is basically the best way. I don't
Okay.
love social media, to
Right.
be honest with you. It's it is what it is, you know. And once you, the more that I learned about the downstream effects, the depression, the comparisons, the anxiety, and all of these other things, and you know, everybody's putting their best foot forward. So it's not something that I spend a lot of time doing or really am super active with. But Instagram is basically only set up to do, you know, the coaching stuff,
Okay.
and the easiest way to reach me. And you know, if
Awesome.
somebody's got questions or has a comment or has a scenario or anything like that, messaging me on Instagram is your best bet.
Beautiful. Awesome, JP. I appreciate you. So there you have it,
Mm-hmm.
everybody. JP Marsh. If you want to get a hold of him, you want to talk about these strategies and moving from conflict to collaboration and co-parenting, get a hold of him on Instagram. He'd love to help you out, and I'm sure
Yeah,
he'd love to have a good conversation with you. So again,
usually.
JP, yeah, right? Usually, as long as they're willing to learn and grow, right?
Right.
That's always the caveat. But again, JP, I appreciate you so much, man. I love your story. I love what you're doing. I think it's going to help a lot of people, and I do hope to have you on again sometime and maybe
Yeah, for
learn more
sure.
from you. Maybe you can get some new insights. So, many
Oh,
thanks,
sounds good.
and
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
thank you. And this is the Pain Factor.